Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our Tiny Talks workshop. Tonight we have Scott Banta and Robin helping each other out with our content. We'll be talking about tiny house, village, neighborhood developments. And we're getting close to the end here, but we're not done yet. So hope you guys enjoy, get a lot out of it. Also, just to let you know, we are recording you. And I have to say that because it is being recorded to be placed in our member portal for all of our people that are not able to watch live. We have a lot of people tuning in to watch in our video library. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Robin and Scott. Thank you.
Yeah. And the other thing is, all of the opinions that we share here are your opinions. You need to check everything with your attorney, your CPA, your engineer, and those kinds of things. I mean, we are training from what we know and from the best that we know. And so just wanted to share that with you. And with that, Scott, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Scott here.
So I'm going to go ahead and get cranking.
Getting settled
Somebody
in the
said
new
hello.
office. Hey.
Scott, in the new office. Yeah. So anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about, what your exit strategy might be. And so whether the name of it is to exit or to keep, that is the question. And so we want to jump into a few slides real quick here. And if we could, when we jump in here, we'll just talk about them a little bit, Scott, and see what that slide really means. So we start this thing from the beginning. And the second slide says, sell as soon as you get the entitlements, as soon as they're approved. What does that mean when you do that? And is that a good idea?
My answer is yes. So what we're doing right now, because the highest risk dollars are the dollars that you're going to spend to get the entitlements. Because at that point, you don't really have anything other than a contract to purchase a piece of property. Once you have the entitlements, it gives you the opportunity to actually go in and develop the property. So what we're doing in DreamQuest is we're creating a fund, FUND, to put the properties under contract and do the entitlements, and then we're going to sell that entitled property to a new venture that will have our investors in it. We've had a lot of resistance, complete and entire resistance to people financing our deal until we had the entitlements done. So we'll actually. I'll
probably call them tomorrow. All right, call y'all, knock your base.
Hey, Jordan, can you mute who's ever talking there?
So
yeah, so basically you're actually doing this with DreamQuest then.
Yes, sir.
But you're selling it to another entity that you have an interest in.
Yeah, the DreamQuest will be actually the developer, but what we're doing is everybody has said that we can add some money to that for our effort to get the entitlements. So we're going ahead and doing, in essence, a markup, and then we'll flip it into the other venture that'll actually build the project and do the vertical. We feel that after we do two or three, that won't be an issue anymore. Plus, after we do 2 or 3, we'll have enough money to do the entitlements ourselves. So that's kind of our plan. That's also my primary business, which is to go ahead and get projects entitled and then flip them into
entitled and flip them. So that's something we didn't talk about this whole time, but that's certainly a viable option, and that's what Scott's been doing all this time. You haven't cut a tree, you haven't touched the dirt. And it like you said, it's the most risk at that point, but it's also the most value. You get your value add. The most value add is getting to that point. Once you've gotten there, the profit margins are smaller. But if you can take a piece of dirt and you can turn it into something that's ready to be built on, there's people out there, unless you're going to stay in it like Scott is, but there's people out there that would love to buy that project and finish the build out themselves because the risk has already been taken.
The highest level of risk, yes.
The highest, yeah, right. All right.
So the risk reward is the highest on that part, because you're
Right.
investing anywhere from 50 to a couple 100,000, whatever that number is, depending on how far you go with it. And then before that, you're going to get usually at least double or triple or 10 times your return.
Wow, look at that. We don't need to go anywhere else, guys. That's it. We're done. Just keep doing that. If you can get double, triple, or 10 times what you've got in something, that's a no-brainer. Wow, I almost didn't add that slide too, Scott, because I just thought of it and I was like, wow, you could just sell this thing as soon as you have the entitlements. But I'm glad we talked about that.
We're doing it, by the way, just on our little deal, we're doing $100,000 markup to sell it to ourselves. So we plan to do, I want to have 2 going by the end of February is my goal, and then the third one going by the end of May. So theoretically, we would make 300,000+. We'll do a little higher when we do higher number of units. We'll make 150 or 200,000 to do the flip. So we're anticipating about $500,000 this year in flip dollars that we can then use in operations.
You're gonna get it on both ends. You're gonna receive the flip dollars, and then you're gonna pick it up on the other end by staying in the deal.
That's correct.
That's great. That's good, guys. That's smart. All right. Next, we lease the lots that are undeveloped, or we sell the lots that are undeveloped. In other words, you can go into a piece of property and you can either lease the land, which is, I don't know why anybody would rent a lot for whatever reason that's undeveloped, but certainly you can sell the lots undeveloped without after you've got them split up into separate parcels. You could actually sell those lots and still haven't touched a piece of dirt or a tree.
That's more on the unusual side, and it's a one-off type thing. So if I bought, let's say, a lot that I could build on potentially, most people aren't going to buy. Investors will buy lots undeveloped, and investors will buy, or people will lease the lots sometimes undeveloped because they may be able to go ahead and stick a tiny home on wheels on it. But most of the time, it really needs to be developed in order to get any kind of significant return out of it.
Well, I know that in our subdivision where we built our house, the county came in 2008, I believe, and put the roads in. They were dirt roads before that. And there was a house here and a house there, but people would go in and buy 80 lots or several lots. Undeveloped lots, and now over time, I mean, we paid $9,000 for our lot, and now these same lots are selling for $30,000 undeveloped, just because the builders came in and said, these are infill lots or whatever they are, and they're trying to buy up the lots in order to build houses on. So that's the idea behind that type of development.
That can work sometimes. Yep.
Okay. Sell the homes and the lots to individual buyers. In other words, each lot must be an individual parcel, and you build a home on it and you sell that home and that lot. I mean, that's a way to develop properties. Is that correct, Scott?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And so that's what a lot of builders do. They go in and they build it out, and then they sell the individual. They have a sales a model, and they sell the lot and the house, either a spec house already built, or build a house, get a contract, and build a custom home.
Or you can also do it for tiny homes on wheels. So you can go in and develop a lot and then sell that lot to someone who comes in with their tiny home on wheels. Also, you can do it as a condo. And what we're doing is ours are going to be basically a horizontal condominium, which is we have 22 in the first one. You will own your own house. You'll get a deed to the house, but it's like you're sitting on common area land. So you would own 1/22 of the land for the entire project parcel.
Perfect. Yeah, and I did have that on another slide, but we'll get there too. But in your situation, there's only one parcel. They're not individual parcels. and then somehow they get title to the house itself. Is that how that works?
Yes, sir. Exactly.
And I guess I don't know why you would, but I guess you could have separate parcels and you own, or the HOA owns all of the parcels, but it just doesn't make sense for that. What's a bond? You know, the villages, they sell bonds and they have an amenities fee. Can you tell us what a bond is?
Yeah, that's called a CDD. CDD, Community Development District. So in the villages, what they have financed 100% of their infrastructure by issuing bonds. That only works if you have very, very large development. You know, I would say the break even is probably 300-400 lots or higher to do a CDD. You'll see, for example, Tavistock, the people that own Lake Nona, their big parcel that they're buying from the Deseret Ranches, the Mormons, they're buying 27,000 acres in Osceola County, north of St. Cloud. And in there, they'll be doing a CDD to put all the infrastructure in. What happens with the CDD is you pay a portion of that every year in your real estate taxes.
Yeah, and it's called a bond. And then after a period of time, that bond is paid off. It might be a 30-year bond or a 10-year bond or something like that. But basically, you actually fund your development by this bond. And as you, like you said, if it's a big development, then you can do that because you're only develop a portion of it at a time. So your costs are going to be only the portion that you're developing. And then they also have what's called an amenities fee. What the heck is that?
There's a lot of different ways. Back in the 80s, they used to have recreational fees. So in a condo, they would build a rec center, tennis courts, the swimming pool, the clubhouse, and all of that. And in essence, the developer would own that and would lease it to the condo association. So that was one amenity fee. Other times you just have HOA. Most of the time nowadays, your amenity costs are included in the HOA fee.
Okay,
There's
unless it's a large
ways.
thing.
Yeah, and then if you have a very large development, you may have a portion in an HOA, and then there's a master HOA. So let's say you're in Lake Nona, for example, you may have, you know, Admiral's Reserve, which is its own HOA. It's part of the Lake Nona HOA.
Yeah, and I think they have separate villages in the villages, you know, the village of something, you know, and that kind of thing. But the amenities fee basically is a way to pay if you're going to have tennis courts, if you're going to have some amenities in there, you're going to have a garden, a community garden. Obviously, if it's a small project, you can just include all of that into your HOA. But if you wanted to, you could have an amenities fee in addition to an HOA fee. And if you wanted to swim in the pool, or if you wanted to plant a garden, then that might be an amenities fee that you pay. But the way it works in the village is you pay the amenities fee, whether you're going to use the golf courses and the pools or not. It's still included in your part of your monthly payment that you pay. And then how does the lot get taxed and how does the tiny house get taxed? If you're doing a separate lot and somebody's going to bring in their tiny house, how does it get taxed? Or in the same way, if you're selling your units, which are on foundations, your smaller homes, how is it taxed? I mean, obviously, the person that bought the home doesn't own the land.
Well, it's just the same as a condominium. So let's say you had a 3-story, or you're over at the beach and you had a 10-story condo. You will get taxed on your unit, and you get a portion of the common area.
And that's
usually
the county.
Yeah,
the county charges that, or the city.
Yeah, the county. And usually what happens is the HOA will get charged for the real estate taxes and the insurance for the common area, and they'll pass that through to the owner of the unit, whether it be a tiny home or a condo on the 10th floor. That unit gets taxed separately. And then the various exemptions that you have, like Florida has a homestead exemption, and there's widows and veterans
Over 65.
Yeah, so you have some of those kind of things, and those would apply to the individual unit taxation.
Okay, so in other words, they're going to, if you go into your 22 units and you buy a home, you're going to have two tax bills, one for your unit and one bill from the HOA that's going to cover your portion of the taxes that the HOA has to pay.
Yeah, typically what would happen is it would just be part of the HOA fee. So the composition of the HOA fee would be the common area maintenance, any reserves for, let's say, your parking lot. Typically, the parking lot will last 7 to 8 years. You have the air conditioning and appliances and things inside the club facility. You got the club facility to pay for. And we may do something like master meter the water, and then everybody would get a part of the master water bill charged out to them on a monthly basis. So all those things would, and the taxes and the insurance on the common area would all get lumped into a budget of, let's say, 22,000. And then so what happens is everybody's responsible for 1,000, or call it $100 a month as a fee to cover all those expenses.
Got it. David, you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, I was when I talked to our county about taxes, and he was a little unclear, and I'm a little unclear on if you go, because he was explaining to me obviously that they know that if you do a tiny home and it's 8.5 foot wide or less, that they can't tax me on it. Because they have it set that once my tiny house spots are developed, he's just going to charge me like a $2,000 value fee on it, which only comes out to like $20 a year in tax per spot. But if I stay at 8.5 foot wide, there won't be any additional county taxes or property tax. And I'm curious how that is everywhere else. If you go to the 10-foot wide models, are those subject to tax, or is there any clarification on that anywhere else?
Robin, I think you can probably answer that better than I can.
Yeah, well,
so,
basically what they're doing for you, David, is you're building an RV park, quote unquote, and they're bringing in their quote unquote RVs. And when you have an RV park, obviously the RVs that are sitting there aren't taxed. They are personal property. They are not real property. Even I think if you bring in a park model RV, which could be 10 feet wide or 12 feet wide, as long as it's less than 400 square feet, that is still considered personal property. And a mobile home, if you go into a mobile home park, that still could be considered personal property. However, a mobile home or a park model RV, and maybe a tiny house, I'm not sure, could be considered part of the real estate. If you surrendered the title and got a different title for that, you get a different sticker that goes on it every year. So as long as it's still considered personal property and not real property, then you're right. It would not be taxed as real estate.
But you may be required to register with the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, and get a license from them.
Yeah, every year you do. You get a license from them. You get a tag from them. Well, you get a tag from them, and then you get a sticker every year is what you get.
Yeah, I believe
Kind of
what I
like
remember
registering
him
your
telling
car.
me. Yeah, I believe he explained to me too that if you end up putting anything on cinder blocks, then it becomes taxable. So like a park model RV, from my understanding, when you typically put those on cinder blocks, then they would tax it. Is that correct? Or is that what you?
Yeah, and usually you tie them down with augers and everything, and now you've attached that unit to the real estate. And so now they can say, yeah, it's attached, it's made part of the real estate. In real estate law, if you can just pick it up and go with it like a stove or refrigerator, it's still personal property. But as soon as you put a microwave in with screws, connected, now it becomes part of the real estate.
Right. Okay. So I could probably safely do 10-foot wide tiny homes, but just do your typical, set it up just like you would an 8.5 foot wide, and still avoid the taxes. Just stay away from the cinder blocks and so forth.
Yeah, and
right?
I think you could. I think there's a way that you could keep that 10-foot wide unit not as real estate, as personal, because I know that when they put mobile homes in, they, I don't think they tax them as real estate. They might. I don't know the answer to that one, David. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what the answer exactly would be if you put it on cinder blocks, if it would turn it into real property.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the mobile home, go ahead, David. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that he was or he kind of expressed to me that basically if it's on cinder blocks like mobile homes and things like that, that they're taxable. So yeah, and I don't know if that varies county by county or if it sounds like one of those kind of regulations that's not really set in stone anywhere, and maybe that does at some point. I don't know, on a government level or anything like that, or if that would just make the whole situation worse.
I think most of it is predicated on how is your unit affixed to the ground. If it's easily movable, like some of the mobile homes or manufactured homes that Robin was talking about, that where you could pick it up and it's still got the yoke on the front, and you could undo it from the things and then roll it out, then that's going to be considered different than something that's basically permanently attached, more what they would consider to be more permanently attached. Like our house is going to be on slabs, so that's obviously permanent.
Right.
Yeah, and something you might be able to do, David, on your 10-foot wide instead of using cinder blocks is just basically get the jacks, the jacks that they put on underneath RVs, and just put those under there so you have more support points along the way to support the unit. And then, it'd be just like an RV. You just crank them up and pull away. The tongue's still there. The axles are still there. The tires are still on. I know what they told me is if you leave the tires on, then it's one thing. And if you take them off, it's something else.
Pretty much thing. Yeah. The trailers I would get anyway, like from Trailer Made or so forth, with the jacks that are welded onto it anyway. So, okay.
Can I say something, please?
Yes,
Yeah,
I was
go ahead,
gonna call
Catherine.
on you.
Okay, thank you. I think especially after our call last night, I don't know, David, if you were on, I think it really is the designation, as long as it's as long as it's an RV and or a mobile home, it does have the Department of Motor Vehicle designation. I actually do have a mobile home is on 5 acres, and it's real property because, like Robin said, it's strapped down and it's on the block. So I think that if you're going to be having the designation of the RV style tiny homes is going to be different than if once they have it designated as a tiny home. Do you guys think, like what we were talking about with Colorado, if you buy a trailer and it's designated as a tiny home, is that going to change that at all? Whether
Yeah, if you can still build a tiny home to the RV standard, but you can only live in it. It's temporary and seasonal housing. You can only put it in places like RV parks where you can do that. If you build a tiny home to the IRC 2018 IRC, which is what they're going to be using, and you're going to get an insignia from the state. Now they're going to require a foundation, either a temporary or permanent foundation, but it will be considered part of the real estate.
Exactly. Then that is my point, is that I think that we all need to be future minded on, is David going to be building the RV style tiny homes or the ANSI style homes? And then that's going, once our ASTM regulations and everything go into effect, it'll be much clearer. But it's better to work towards the future, right? I think that's what we're all learning.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, David, one thing that we learned last night was that if in certain states, there's requirements to be a manufacturer and a dealer. And in certain states, manufacturers usually don't have to have bonding, but dealers do. Unless you're building in one of the states that she pulled out, if you're building a RV, NFPA 1192, 8.5 wide, then that you have to have a bond to be a dealer. But if you're building an ANSI product over 8.5 wide, then you do not have to have a bond. So whatever state you're in, just check with the rules and regulations for a manufacturer and a dealer, because they are separate and separate licenses.
I also
Okay.
think the important criteria is, what do you want out of it? I mean, is it someplace where you're going to have people pulling in and out or not pulling in and out, and are you going to lease them? Are you going to sell them, or what are you going to do? So I think a lot of that's going to be based on what your personal investment criteria is on doing your community.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And that's where we don't know long-term what we want to do. I figured I'm going to split it up half and half, do long-term on one side and short-term on the other, and just see what more interest seems, is more of an interest. And I figured I'd I'm going to contact the lady that spoke yesterday. I didn't get to listen to it, but just to kind of make sure, see which route I need to go, since we're starting kind of from scratch, so to speak, and on the building process, kind of starting over, so to speak, really, and see what direction we really want to go. Like you're saying, on the 10-foot wide or 8.5-foot wide, if we want to limit it to 8.5-foot wide, or go ahead and offer the 10-foot, also just depending on, if I got to get extra bonding and all that. So, okay.
Yeah, and the
Thank
other
you.
thing that we learned that was kind of interesting was on the Monday call, I think, is you can go up to 11 foot 11 inches, and you still don't need to have an escort. But as soon as you hit that 12-foot number, now you have to have escorts front and back. So 10-foot wide is not a magic number. It's just 8'6" or less, and then up to 11 foot 11 inches. If you just want to put that into your hat, something else that we learned along the way.
That's pretty cool.
David, where are you located?
Central Texas.
Okay.
And Jennifer
So-
Lavini has a book out. It's an ebook
Yeah.
that you can get off of Amazon, and she has the links to all 50 states. So all the different what do they call them? Departments that you need to register with, and all the rules. And she has all 50 states in there. So that might be something. It's either free if you have Prime, or $10 under $10 if you don't. So it might be a good investment there.
Yeah.
The other thing you're going to,
for sure.
the other thing you're going to want to do. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
The other thing you want to make sure you check with is your fire department to see if they have any regulations on setbacks.
Yeah, we did. The county guys gave me their information. They had a little printout. They just needed a 20-foot clearing, or all roads to be 20 foot wide. The width to be 20 foot and up 16 foot. I think it was a 15 or 16 feet clearance to drive around all the corners and so forth. And that was really all they needed.
JP, you got your hand up.
Hey, yeah, real quick question about the trailer and the DMV you guys were just talking about. So we went through the process to be able to build our own trailers, and we can issue VINs as a tiny home. No, nobody knew anything about that when we were doing the process. All of our lawyers, they made it sound like it was some made up thing. Do you guys know, since that's DMV related, I would assume it varies by state, which DMV will know what that is. Is there any, does some DMV look at it like that's a tiny home, and some look at it like it's just a trailer? Or do we know anything about that? Does anybody have insight on that?
Yeah, it's still kind of a gray area in California. They're surrendering their trailer title and getting an RV title. Some people are. It's still going to have the same VIN and everything. It's just going to have a different title. Some people are just keeping the title to the utility trailer or the tiny house trailer, and then they're building a tiny house on it and selling the tiny house with a bill of sale, and then transferring the title to the trailer. So it's getting more and more in the direction of, if you're going to have a tiny house permanently affixed to a unit, a trailer, that you're going to need to have a separate title for that entire unit. And so it does depend on states, and that book might help you out a little bit on that. But the biggest thing, takeaway that I got is 90% of the people out there don't do the trailer thing. They build a trailer. They don't create their own. They're not registered to create their own VINs. They build a tiny house on it, and then they're trying to get the title transferred or trying to get a title to the trailer or to the unit, and it becomes very difficult. What state are you in, JP?
I'm in Georgia, and so the houses we sold is I've done a couple where we did it as a tiny home trailer, and then the customer got the MCO from us along with the bill of sale for the tiny house and had no problem registering it. And there was one where that didn't work, and I had to reissue a MCO as a utility trailer with a house on it. You know, they couldn't figure out how to get it registered. I can't remember what state that was, but yeah, I guess that was the thing. You know, you can kind of almost write whatever you want on the MCO paperwork, like that trailer paperwork, to get the title. You know,
Right. Right. And
and so
whatever works. And
you know,
it
some
really
states are
depends
weird.
on it depends on the motor vehicle administration, and it also depends who you get at the motor vehicle administration. You know, you go and they turn you down, you go back the next day and get somebody else and they say, okay, this is how you do it. So I've seen that happen
Exactly.
a lot too.
Now, who was
Yeah.
it with
Yeah,
that was talking on
My-
Monday that was saying something about having to get trailers certified by an engineer? What?
Yeah, that was Joshua and of Tiny House Experts. And right now, he doesn't certify them. But Colorado's going to, it seems, we talked a lot about that yesterday. Colorado, it looks like what they're going to do is if your trailer is made for purpose of a tiny home by a trailer manufacturer, that they're not going to require engineered stamped on that trailer. However, they will want the specifications for that trailer. What's the main rail, 2-inch by 6-inch, 1/8-inch steel, 1/4-inch steel, that kind of thing. So they're going to want that. And then if you modify that trailer, they're going to need engineers stamp plans on that one. If you modify the trailer,
Okay, thank
that's
you.
how they're doing it. So everybody's going to be a little bit different, I think, on that.
Thank
All
you.
right, move right along. Lease the lots undeveloped or sell the lots undeveloped. Did we do that one already? I think we did that one,
Yeah,
didn't we?
we're past that. Yeah.
That's that one.
We did that one. All right. Lease the tiny house, the tiny or micro home and the lot to the tenant. So you basically build the entire unit and you own everything, either all on one parcel or all on separate parcels, and you lease it out rather than sell it. Is that another
I
exit
don't
strategy?
I think, yeah, but I think that we've already pretty well covered that. So like in our case, we have the common area like we talked about with the condo. Instead of selling the units, I could actually lease the units. So it's just up to personal choice. Like if I just wanted to keep it as an income property, I could go ahead and lease the units. What we're trying to do is generate the income to be able to do other things. Like we want
Right.
to have an
But that is an exit
academy.
strategy. If somebody had the money and everything and the investors that could do that, where they could go in and build out the entire project, tiny house development, and then just rent it out and keep the
Income
keep the
stream.
income stream rather than and you could either do that all on one parcel if you could sell a few and keep a few, or you could they could be all on one parcel or individual parcels. And the property taxes may change if it's all one parcel and you subdivide it into 22 or 60 or 100 parcels. The tax rate, your total tax bill on everything might change. I've seen that happen where I take one lot and divide it into 2 lots, and suddenly I've got 2 tax bills that will include the ad valorem tax on both lots rather than on one. So you're paying the ad valorem twice. So just be careful about that when you're doing that.
You also have to remember the non-ad valorem tax. So in some cases, the non-ad valorem, like your trash collection, possibly your water management, and then if you have a taxing district for your street lighting or any of those kind of things, that all comes in under the non-ad valorem tax.
Oh, okay. And that could change if you subdivide it into multiple lots. You might have 22 bills instead of one bill on that.
That's why we're
On your
looking
tax
to
bill.
master meter our water, because here typically our water bill's roughly $30 per unit. If you don't use any water, it's going to cost you $30. So we may be able to get that down to with a master meter to something like $15 a unit, based on, because it'll now be based on the water consumption. And the 15,
Right.
then we would bill that out to each resident. As
So
you
the
know,
$30
as a-
fee only happens once at the
yeah,
meter.
every month at the meter. And then you obviously could go higher if you used a lot of water, but a lot of people never hit the minimum. So
Okay.
we're-
So
we're
the
looking at
meter
master meter.
meter fee would be split among 22, and then whatever the usage is would be split among 22.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, love it.
Quick,
Love it.
quick question about. Sorry. Just
Yeah,
a quick
go ahead,
question about
JP.
what you're talking about. If you were to own the units and lease them, I know. So in Georgia, we've been talking a lot about doing that, and one of the issues is if they're on wheels and they are classified as an RV. If I, as the landowner, and because an RV park, right, is supposed to be people coming and going, and if I owned 50 units on one piece of land that I also owned, they kind of look at it like I'm trying to skirt some rules. Whereas if there was individual owners, that they more think of it as still an RV park and not me making a unlicensed development, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think.
Has anybody had
from,
issues with that?
Yeah, from my perspective, we have a lot of RV parks in Florida that are selling the spaces, and then we have a bunch of them that are just leasing the spaces. So in Florida, you could do either or.
Okay.
So I don't. It's just as the owner, you're just going to get paid. Pay taxes on whatever you own, and then whether
And you
you
could
rent
own
out or-
you could own the park in one name, in one entity, and own the units in separate entities, multiple entities or something like that. I know we have a park here that I'm part owner of, that we have 83 units, and we probably own half of them, and other people own half of them. So so we have a mixture of own a few and other people own a few, but we own all the land, all the real estate.
That's kind of what I was thinking, was split it up so that I can still say it's still an RV park and not just a big development that I'm trying to pay less tax on because it's not affixed to the ground or something like that. Which is the pushback I always get.
Yeah. And then in this slide, we'll just do real quick. You could also sell the unit, and if you are subdivided into separate parcels, then you could lease the lot to the homeowner. They buy the unit, and then they pay a rent to you on that particular lot. And if they wanted to move their unit, they could, and you could bring somebody else in on that lot. But the lots are separate parcels rather than one total parcel on that. And I guess as far as an HOA or condo fees, we already talked a little bit about that. Is there anything else we need to say about that, Scott?
No, the only thing is, I think if you own them all, then you have a lot of control over what happens.
Absolutely. And the more you own, the more control you have. But if you own the HOA, you have control too. So builders own the HOA usually until it's completely built out, and then they have a board that manages it.
Yeah, a lot of times that's 75 to 80% where they do what they call the turnover. Sometimes it's 100, but.
All right, this is the last slide I have, and basically you've got all your tiny house or micro homes or whatever are built, all the development's done, and you've sold or leased all of the units. They're completely full or nearly completely full, and then you decide, okay, one exit strategy could be, I'm just going to sell it all. I don't want it anymore. I'm done with it, and I'm going to go on and do it again. Is that a good strategy? Do you see that a lot, Scott, or how does that play out?
Well, I think that goes back to what your initial program is. So a lot of people that, and let's say David, for example, he's going to do maybe 50-50 split for, you know, some of his lots and others. So he could, let's say, sell 50% of them to lots and the homes to somebody, and then own the other half that he leases them out. So he could potentially just have ground leases where the people own their own unit and they have the ground lease, and he could sell the ground lease under a cap rate, or he could own those units that are on the ground and then, you know, lease the units separately from the ground, or and have two different income streams. Or you could even potentially have, you know, the unit on the lot that's leased. You know, let's say it's $500 a lot rent and $400 for the house, or you could do $900. So there's three different strategy things there if you were leasing.
Yeah, and things to sell.
Once you're sold out, like ours, there's really nothing left to sell in terms of selling the business other than potentially the management.
Yeah, yeah. If you were to have yours, everything sold out, and now you own the the management company, the HOA or whatever, whoever owns those lots, well, I guess that's a company that would own the parcel, the property. Well, that company could sell the property with the with all of the things that go on it if they wanted to. In other words, you could sell out at some point, right, Scott?
Yeah, just like, let's say you owned an RV park and you had 50 units and they were tiny houses on wheels or RVs coming in and out. You know, you could build it up, let's say, do some amenities, create it, you know, make it, let's say, buy a junky one and fix it up, and then, you know, do the value add play where, you know, you went from $300 a month lot rent to $600 a month lot rent. You went from 50% occupied to 100% occupied. You can then sell that income stream based on some cap rate and generate money. A lot of people do that right now with mobile home parks, where they're buying junky ones, fixing them up, and then reselling them. I have a friend who's doing that right now. He's on his fifth one, and he's
Yeah, that's a good value play. It's profitable too to do that. All right, well, that's all I have, guys, for now, and it's almost quarter of here. Scott, I know you had to get out of here at quarter of. JP, you still got your hand up. Did you have any other questions?
Oh, no, sorry. I didn't realize that. Sorry.
Okay, not a problem. All right, anybody else have any other questions? If not, I'm going to turn it back over to Leanne to bring us out of here.
All right, that was great info. Short, sweet, but still great info. Thank you so much. So that's it for this evening. Tomorrow night we have our inspectors where we'll have some kind of chat with them. I don't know if they'll have topics and an agenda, or you guys can bring your questions for our inspectors. So with that, I'm gonna close it out completely. You guys have a super good evening, and we will see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Have a good one. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.